Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here. We're going to go over the Sundance 2020 Oscar contenders. I was at Sundance, I saw 30 films there, and I'm going to talk about which of these films I could see getting Oscar consideration next year. What's hype? Could it be no nominations for any Sundance film like last year? The answer is no, it's going to get at least one. We're going to tell you which one that is. Let's start out with what is, in my opinion, the most likely movie to appear in the Best Picture race. That is Minari, the movie that won the audience and the grand jury prize at Sundance. This movie got so much buzz at Sundance, the most critically acclaimed movie there, where I think that this movie, snakes into Best Picture is in the writing and the acting races. What an ensemble. Hope it gets a SAG Ensemble nomination, but, it does make me nervous that this is an A24 indie, and we never know. It could end up like The Farewell and get all this acclaim, all this buzz, even do decently at the box office and just still not make it into that Oscar race. So where are we going to see this get nominated for acting? In my opinion, the most likely nomination would be for Ye Jung-yoon, who plays the grandma in this film. She's a blast to watch. She's hilarious. She's fun. She gets your heart going when she needs to. She could easily be campaigned as a supporting actress, and I could see her getting nominated there. But then again, we had Zhao Shuzhen last year who unfortunately couldn't make it. So I can't say that, she would prevail over Zhao Shuzhen, but I can hope. Steven Yeun is getting consideration as well for his performance in the film. A lot of people have him in the Best Actor conversation. And I will tell you from having seen the movie that he's not in it that much. The grandma is in it as much as he is. The little boy is in it maybe more. He doesn't resonate to me as a lead actor that much, and his screen time is kind of weak. I do not, if they decide to campaign him in lead, I do not see him getting a nomination. I don't think he does enough. I could see the studio actually going Alan Kim, the little kid, just saying that he's the lead, which is not technically incorrect, and campaigning Steven Yeun and supporting, because that will give him a better shot of being nominated. So if the studio does do this, then I get to say that I called it. The mom in this movie, played by Yuri Han, was also excellent, would be worthy of a supporting actress nomination. Her performance is usually more subtle than the grandmother. If they're going to pick one, I would think that they would go with the grandma, but there are so many good performances in this film, I hope it gets ensemble consideration. The screenplay, I think, really has a shot here too. It's funny, it's heartfelt, it is layered, it's everything that the Oscars should be nominating in a screenplay, and I really could see it getting an original screenplay nomination. Hopefully we don't get a 1917 getting nominated over this shit. Technically, there's one element I can see getting nominated. Score. Emile Mosseri, the composer of Last Black Man in San Francisco. If you've heard that score, if you've seen that movie, you understand. This is a gorgeous score. If they don't nominate it, it will be absolutely disgusting. So there's kind of a package here. Score, potentially 2 actors, a screenplay, and a picture. That's the max that it could probably get. I think this has a better shot than The Farewell, because The Farewell struck me as a movie that is a little slow. It might be a little slow for people, but this movie I actually think has a little bit less of that problem. Another thing to note is that this movie is enough in Korean. It will qualify as a foreign film at the Golden Globes. Just keep that in mind. That's really the only movie I can see squeezing into Best Picture. The second most likely would probably be The Father, with Anthony Hopkins and Olivia Colman. Anthony Hopkins plays an old man, obviously, with dementia in this film. And the way that they portray dementia in this movie is very unique and kind of disjointed and very interesting. Anthony Hopkins is so good in this film that I do not know that he can be beat for Best Actor. I think he may win a second Oscar. I think that you'd have to pull off some Titanic, massive biopic transformation performance to beat him this year, because he gives what will easily be one of the best performances all year, and I don't see a universe where he's not nominated for Best Lead Actor. And you're saying, what about Olivia Colman? She's excellent, and she might be able to pull off some actress hype, but this really does feel like a Hopkins show. But if they do go outside of that, maybe Olivia Colman gets consideration. Maybe the screenplay gets consideration, adapted screenplay. I mean, it's a very well-written movie. It's based on a play. Technically, it's pretty average looking. It won't get any technical nominations. I would predict right now that it will just get actor, but I could see adapted screenplay and actress maybe being in the mix. Third most likely movie for a Best Picture nomination, in my opinion, is 9 Days, which took the screenwriting prize. It's a sci-fi drama. The plot is a little difficult to explain, but all I can really tell you is that it is a film that operates through the emotions, that makes you reflect on, the beauties of life. The reason that I think that this movie has a shot, not a great one, but a shot at getting in Best Picture is because audiences, from what I heard, loved the movie. It's an emotionally driven movie that I think will be known as a tearjerker. You can't argue with tears. This could get a screenplay nomination because the concept is very clever. Winston Duke is great in this movie, and I hope he can get some Best Actor consideration, but I think it could be relegated to the critics groups because his performance is often kind of repressed and quiet, but he does have those moments where he lets it out in ways that are just magnificent. This movie will probably get just screenplay or nothing, but it'd be interesting to see if this movie ends up really hitting audiences in a certain way where it can then get further hype for picture and actor and other awards. Another film, Ironbark, starring Benedict Cumberbatch with supporting turns from Rachel Brosnahan and Jessie Buckley, is the most Oscar bait film of the festival. And when I saw this, not knowing too much going into it, I was very surprised with the emotional pull of this film. Not only was it smart and well made, but it had really good performances. I thought it was a little better than I expected for just wartime Oscar bait, which is becoming a cliche. Apparently, others don't quite agree. They think that it totally just falls in line with all that other Oscar bait that you don't need to care about. The reviews aren't good enough. It's not going to get a Best Picture nomination, even though some will say that it will because it is such Oscar bait on the surface. Benedict Cumberbatch is in it. It has good supporting performances. The writing's good. It's technically well made, but I don't think that any single element is superb enough to guarantee a nomination. The movie doesn't really have a way of climbing in, and it'll probably end up like The Report last year. Promising Young Woman, a movie that many have heard of. The trailer dropped and it made big buzz. Carey Mulligan is in it. This one, the audiences loved. It got as much critical reception as you would hope for. It's a fun movie and an important movie at the same time. It does have an April release date, which automatically raises red flags. But I think that this is a memorable enough movie that if this movie does really well at the box office, you can see it kind of steamrolling all the way through the year. People remember it. Critics groups start giving Best Actress to Carey Mulligan, maybe giving it a couple screenplay awards. Who knows what it can do? I could actually see Carey Mulligan being like this year's Lupita Nyong'o. I would probably bet on this getting no nominations, but I would not count out Carey Mulligan as a Best Actress contender. Worth noting that Promising Young Woman is also a likely nominee in comedy musical. Some people will say, oh, this movie is such a serious subject matter. Are we really going to call it a comedy? But I think the movie is merited in calling itself a comedy. It is about things that are painful, but it is like a comedy. Bo Burnham's in it, and it could contend for Comedy Musical Picture and Comedy Musical Actress, I think. Maybe it's a lock. Is it too early to say anything's a lock? I don't know, but Carey Mulligan really should be there. The Glorias is an Oscar bait film starring Julianne Moore as Gloria Steinem, the legendary feminist writer. Alicia Vikander plays the younger version of her. This movie got sort of mixed reviews, and most of the Sundance audience felt that this movie was somewhere in like the 5 or 6 out of 10 range. So I wouldn't see it contending for Best Picture. However, I did see a lot of, a certain demographic of like older aged women really liking this movie. So I guess we can't like totally dismiss that. I actually didn't see this one, but it doesn't seem like a movie that Alicia Vikander is going to get nominated for or that Julianne Moore is going to get nominated for. So I would expect this one to get shut out of the Oscars. Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always is one of the most acclaimed movies of the fest. It has extraordinarily high Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes scores. Most people I talked to at the festival absolutely loved it. I liked the movie as well. I'm not as crazy as others. That leaves the question, if it's one of the most acclaimed movies, can it get some Oscar buzz? It will get buzz. People will remember it at the end of the year because it is a movie that might sustain a high 80 or a low 90 on Metacritic. It's a very sad and dark look at a 17-year-old girl trying to get an abortion. The lead actress, Sydney Flanagan, will not go forgotten with critics groups. And I see her getting Indie Spirit nominations for this performance. And I can see director Eliza Hittman getting director nomination or screenplay at the Indie Spirits or at other critics groups. But I do not see this movie carrying through to the Oscars. It is sad. Regular audiences will be like, man, like that was depressing. Like, why did I sit through that? It doesn't give me pleasure to say that. That's just how it is. Regular audiences are not going to like this movie. Critics and people who are like really serious about movies, like exploring important topics, will like the movie. Some people are looking at the film Shirley as a potential contender. This is directed by Josephine Decker, and it stars Elizabeth Moss and Michael Stuhlbarg. Elizabeth Moss is playing the writer Shirley Jackson. So yes, she's playing a quirky, weird, true-life figure. Is this a potential movie that can get her an actress nomination? I would say no. Number one, the movie's weird. It's not conventional biopic that makes you rah-rah for anything. Most audiences are going to walk out like, okay, like the performances were good. I don't really know what I got out of it. I even felt like that to a certain extent about the movie. You know, I was a little tired during it. Sundance is exhausting. I want to watch it again when it comes out to give it a better watch. I didn't review it on this channel for that reason. I didn't feel like I fully absorbed it. Elizabeth Moss is excellent in it, but the other thing is she's not technically the lead. It's actually about the younger couple who they're letting stay at their house. Whether she's campaign lead or supporting, this movie doesn't seem that it's going to have any sort of groundswell support. And again, Michael Stuhlbarg and Elizabeth Moss are amazing, but they just won't be nominated for this movie. Palm Springs was one of my favorite movies at the festival. It's a comedy with Andy Samberg in it. Neon and Hulu teamed up to buy this movie for a record $22 million. And I saw a perfectly good reason to spend that kind of money on this because I think that this movie could be an absolute hit. Easily going to be the comedy of the year. It has over an 80 on Metacritic. It's hard for mainstream comedies to get Oscar buzz. Maybe it can score a screenplay nomination. It's really well written, the dialogue's excellent, and it has moments that are heartfelt and some moments that are actually a little thought-provoking, but I think overall you might see it relegated to Golden Globes territory. Also something I would be upset not to see. This movie should be in lead actor for Andy Samberg, and it should be in comedy musical picture. Maybe even nominate Kristen Milioti for Palm Springs in a comedy musical actress. Another Golden Globe contender might be Rada Blank in The 40-Year-Old Version, a movie that she wrote and directed. I think Netflix bought it. Maybe they can campaign her for comedy musical actress or this movie for comedy musical picture, but it feels like a movie that could just get comedy musical actress, like a similar black and white film, Frances Ha. I would love to see her get nominated for this movie. I think it would be totally deserved. If the movie makes enough of an impact, if enough people see it, I think it could. Documentaries that have a lot of hype here. We got Crip Camp and Boys State, which won some awards. Some will say that, you know, the Oscars don't like to nominate documentaries that use compiled footage. Maybe that's true. Apparently they have a huge bias towards it. So, I don't know. Watch out if you're one of those documentaries, but these are the documentaries that are probably going to be getting the most nominations throughout the year. Crip Camp, Boys State, Rebuilding Paradise, a Ron Howard documentary, and The Fight. Worth, which stars Michael Keaton and Stanley Tucci in a supporting role. You know, these two actors are really great. I think they would be worthy of getting nominated in their respective categories. I don't really see it happening. The critic reviews for this film aren't super strong. I wonder if Meek Mill, who is in Charm City Kings, can get a nomination or two somewhere for his supporting role in the film. I have heard buzz going on about people who are like, can Meek Mill be an actual supporting actor contender? I feel like this probably won't happen. I think it'll come out in April and people will talk about it a little bit and then forget it. And The Nest, the Sean Durkin movie. Can this film get some acting hype for one of its actors? It stars Jude Law and Carrie Coon. Carrie Coon is the one who will be getting hyped for this movie. She's very good, and she's been overdue for this kind of performance where she really gets to show what she's made of. I really liked The Nest. A lot of people don't, though, and they think it's very boring. So this movie is not going to be anywhere near the Oscars. Maybe she can score a couple critic nominations, but even that is sort of iffy to me. This is what you can hold me to on if these nominations happen. Minari is so hard to predict because it'll either get a few or it'll get none. I would put it on for supporting actors, and screenplay at the moment. And score. Because, you know, we don't know what else is out there. I think that we know that it's going to be in the conversation, so I will put it on my list as of now. Aside from those two, I mentioned that I think all these other films can get buzz, but I don't know that anything else will last. I would say the next likely are Carey Mulligan getting a nomination for Promising Young Woman and 9 Days getting a screenplay nomination. So those are my Oscar predictions for films from the Sundance Film Festival 2020. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. What do you predict is getting nominated from Sundance?